Diablo 2, for the most part, is a straightforward game when it comes to playing your characters, but when you get to higher level play and late game goals, you may start noticing odd quirks and bugs in the game that you just can't explain. Today we're going to look at 7 of these things that new players and many veterans do not know. Number 1, probably the most well-known of these quirks and bugs, is what is commonly referred to as the LCS, or lying character screen. While for the most part you can use your character screen to get a general idea of how your character is performing in terms of its raw numbers, the reality is this information is only correct up to a point and doesn't exactly tell you the actual numbers your character is working with. This is especially noteworthy in terms of your character's damage and attack rating, which are often wrong compared to the actual mechanical numbers. They will give you an idea, but it doesn't account for things like grief properly or skills like Blade Fury, so take it with a grain of salt. Number 2, another one that most veteran players know about but new players are very likely to miss is the resist scroll bug. This bug only affects softcore players since it requires dying, but the simple version of it is, if you die in a game, the effects of the resist scroll will vanish until you enter a new game or leave and return to the same game that you're in. While this isn't reflected on your character screen, it is the way it is in terms of actual game function, so you're not just imagining things if you died in a game, then find yourself having even more trouble than usual with things like gloams. Number 3, the last of the quirks related to display is the fact that not all life and mana sources are equal, especially whenever you're dealing with percent boosts from things like battle orders or equipment, etc. The reality is some are boostable by this, some are not. All of your base values are of course boostable, as are strictly plus life and plus mana items, quest rewards, etc. Leveling up rewards, they all get in there. And they get the increase by the percent as you would expect. Where you don't see the boosts are with vitality and energy points from items. You also don't get to see them in level-dependent sources of life and mana, such as plus X mana per level. These extra points in vitality, energy, and level-scaled life and mana all apply after the percent boost, leading to much smaller rewards for them compared to just the flat boosts. Number 4, for a fun little midpoint, did you know there's a pure magic damage attack that bypasses undead magic immunity still? Even though they took that function away from Blessed Hammer, they allowed Holy Bolts to actually keep it as a property, meaning in a pinch, yes, you can actually still use Holy Bolt to kill magic immune undead. While not insanely useful out of some very specific situations, it's still one of those strange things that most people don't know. Number 5, while some skills damage over time and do a little bit of damage every in-game tick, other skills actually rely on a mechanic most people don't recognize called Next Delay. While some skills have cooldowns on when they can be cast, other skills have an effect that prevents a single target from being overwhelmed with successive damage, and this effect is Next Delay. Commonly seen examples are things such as the Fissure Vents, Wake of Fire Waves, Shockweb Zaps, Twister Hits, Warcry Blasts, etc. Basically, if hit by a skill in a group, the enemy gains immunity to damage from skills in that group for the duration of its next delay. Depending on the group, this can be anywhere from 4 frames all the way up to the full second length of 25 frames. So keep an eye out for these types of skills, especially if you're playing in a group. It's best to consider what would be overlapping from these groups and prevent you from doing as much damage as possible. Number 6, before we get to the most important one from this list that can actually sometimes kill players who group with Hammerdins or players with certain mercenary builds, I figured we'd soften it up with another fun little thing that most players don't know, and that's how upgrading unidentified uniques behave. With that thought, your brain probably immediately went to the trade cons. Oh no, they're gonna upgrade this and steal from me. But thankfully, the way it functions helps protect against that, since when you upgrade an unidentified unique, it will actually automatically identify it in the process. So if you really feel like saving a tiny pinch of gold at the cost of a couple runes and a perfect emerald, maybe it's worth it for you, but it is just a fun little quirk that does keep people from being dishonest in trades. Number 7, last and not least for this list, is a quirk that actually keeps you from teleporting, at least some of the time. A glitch that most people don't realize, and one reason why you may want to give your Hammerdin some space, is that the skill Concentration has an interesting bug that actually causes it to interrupt spellcasting 20% of the time. And while it can affect any spell, the one most people notice is going to be the teleport hiccup that can mean death for someone who gets stuck in a nasty bunch of enemies. It can even sometimes interrupt the Paladin's teleports if they attempt to do it too close to switching off of the aura, due to aura lag. So be kind of aware of this if you're playing a character with concentration or when playing with a character with concentration. You may want to keep your distance or consider a secondary aura for group play with casters. If you found these interesting or helpful, hit that like button so YouTube will recommend you more Diablo 2 content, not only from me, but other creators as well, since there's a few good ones out there and it does share the Diablo 2 love.